hunter's son one day saw Enkidu opening a trap. The creature was all covered with hair, and yet his hands had the dexterity of men's. He ran beside the freed gazelle like a brother, and they drank together at a pool like two friends, sharing some common journey, not needing to speak, but just continue. Gilgamesh was a godlike man, alone with his thoughts in idleness, except for those evenings when he went down into the marketplace to the family house to sleep with the virgins, or when he told his dreams to his mother, Ninsun. The hunter listened to his son's description of Enkidu, and was both angry and afraid. He told his son to go to Uruk and to tell what he had seen to Gilgamesh, and to ask him to send a prostitute who would sleep with Enkidu and make the animals ashamed of him. Gilgamesh would understand, for he was king. The hunter's son made the day's journey to Uruk and told what he had seen to Gilgamesh, showing him his father's anger and his fear, and praising the strength of the strange creature who had come to his father's plains and freed the animals from the traps and lived as one of them and threatened the livelihood of men. Gilgamesh listened, but he had heard so many stories of the wondrous creatures of the forest and the steppe that he could hardly be aroused. He sent the prostitute, but then forgot what he had listened. The hunter left the prostitute alone at the spring. When evening came, Enkidu appeared among the animals and drank with them and rested at their side. When he awoke, he saw a creature unlike any he had seen before, standing near the water, its skin smooth, tan, and hairless except for its head and between its legs. He wanted to touch it, but then it made sounds he had never heard, not like the sounds of his friends, the animals, and he was afraid. The prostitute came close to him, and the animals withdrew. She took his hand and guided it across her breasts and between her legs, and touched him with her fingers gently, and bent down and moistened him with her lips, then drew him slowly to the ground. When he rose again, looking for his friends who had gone, he felt a strange exhaustion, as if life had left his body. He felt their absence. He imagined the gazelles raising the dry dust, like soft brush floating on the crests of sand, swiftly changing direction, and the serpents asleep at the springs, slipping effortlessly into the water, and the wild she-camel vanishing into the desert. His friends had left him to a vast aloneness he had never felt before. The lions returned to the mountains, the water buffalo to the rivers, the birds to the sky. Gilgamesh woke anxiously from a dream and said to Ninsun, "I saw a star fall from the sky, and the people of Uruk stood around and admired it, and I was jealous and tried to carry it away, but I was too weak and I failed. What does it mean? I have not dreamed like this before." She said, "Your equal is the star which fell, as if a sign from heaven had been sent, which is too heavy, but which you will try to lift and drive away, and fail." "But I have never failed before," he interrupted her, surprised himself in his anxiety. "It will be a person," she continued, speaking in her somber monotone, "a companion who is your equal in strength, a person loyal to a friend, who will not forsake you, from whom you will never wish to leave." Gilgamesh was quiet at this interpretation of his dream. That night he had a vision of an axe. "What does this mean?" he said on waking. "The people stood around the axe when I tried to lift it, and I failed. I feel such tiredness I cannot explain." Ninsun said, "The axe is a man, who is your friend and equal. He will come, a graceful man who will lift you out of tiredness." "Oh, Ninsun, I want your words to be true. I have never known such weariness before, as if some life in me has disappeared or needs to be filled up again. I am alone, and I have longed for some companionship. My people also have grown tired of my solitude." The prostitute slept beside Enkidu until he was used to her body. She knew how gradually one stops desiring to run with old companions. One morning she awoke and said to him, "Why do you still want to run with the animals? You are a human being now, not like them. You are like a god, like Gilgamesh. I will lead you to Uruk, where you belong, to the temple of Ana, where Gilgamesh rules over his people and is strong, and you will recognize yourself in him as in a clear stream. You will see your own face, a man's face." He listened to her words and to the unfamiliar names of Anu, Gilgamesh, and felt weak. He let her clothe him in a portion of her scarlet robe and lead him to a shepherd's house. where he was welcomed and taught to eat bread and drink the liquor that the shepherds drank. His soul felt new and strange, and his face was hot with sweat and somehow gay. The prostitute shaved the long hair off his body. She washed him with perfumes and oils, and he became a man. At night, he stood watch for the shepherds against the lions so they could sleep. He captured wolves for them, and he was known as their protector. One day, a man who was going to Uruk stopped to eat at the shepherd's house. He told them he was hurrying to the marketplace to choose for himself a virgin bride, whom Gilgamesh, by his birthright, would sleep with before him. Peter's face was pale. He felt a weakness in his body at the mention of their king. He asked the prostitute why this should be his birthright. She answered, "He is king." Enkidu entered Uruk. The prostitute walked behind him. The marketplace filled with people when they heard that he was coming. People said, "He looks like Gilgamesh, but he's shorter and also stronger. He has the power of the steppe. The milk of the animals he sucked." They hailed him as the equal of their king. At night, when Gilgamesh approached the market square to go into the family house where the bride was to be chosen, Enkidu stood, blocking his way. Gilgamesh looked at the stranger, and he listened to his people's shouts of praise for someone other than himself, and lunged at Enkidu. They fell like wolves at each other's throats, like bulls bellowing and horses gasping for breath that have run all day, desperate for rest, and water crushing the gate they fell against. The dry dust billowed in the marketplace, and people shrieked. The dogs raced in and out between their legs. A child screamed at their feet that danced the dance of life which hovers close to death. And quiet suddenly fell on them, and Gilgamesh stood still, exhausted. He turned to Enkidu, who leaned against his shoulder, and looked into his eyes and saw himself in the other, just as Enkidu saw himself in Gilgamesh. In the silence of the people, they began to laugh and clutched each other in their breathless exhaustion.